The first thing Dario Vescari felt was a small hand gripping his shirt. The second was warm breath against his throat. He opened his eyes without moving. Years of surviving ambushes had trained him to wake silently, assess every sound, and reach for a weapon before an enemy realized he was conscious. His fingers slid beneath the cushion beside him, searching for the pistol hidden there. And the child on his chest sighed. Dario froze. A toddler lay sprawled across him, as if the most feared man in Bellariva were nothing more dangerous than a mattress. One tiny leg rested over his ribs. A faded yellow sock hung halfway off the boy's foot. His dark curls tickled Dario's jaw, and dried tears marked his round cheeks. Dario stared at him in disbelief. No one entered the West Library without permission. Not his guards. Not his advisors. Certainly not a child. A wooden toy car lay on the carpet beside the sofa. Near the open door stood a woman in a maid's uniform, one hand pressed over her mouth. Her face had gone completely white. "Don't move," she whispered. Dario's eyes narrowed. "Are you giving me an order?" Her hand dropped. "No, sir. I meant please." He wakes easily. Dario looked down at the boy sleeping over the scar beneath his shirt, the place where a bullet had nearly ended his life 5 years earlier. "Remove him." The woman hurried forward, but the moment she reached for the child, the boy tightened his fist around Dario's shirt. "No," he whimpered in his sleep. "Mama, stay." The maid stopped. Something raw passed across her face before she hit it. Dario noticed. He noticed everything. "What is a child doing in my house? He isn't supposed to be here." "That was not my question." The woman swallowed. "His babysitter abandoned him at the staff entrance. I had nowhere safe to take him, so I hid him in the laundry room until my shift ended. He must have followed me. You had an unauthorized person inside my estate. He is 3 years old. He is unauthorized." Her fear flickered into anger. "He is my son." Dario studied her properly for the first time. She had worked at the estate for nearly 6 months, yet he knew little beyond her name. Amara Key. Quiet. Efficient. Never late. Never involved in staff gossip. Now she stood before him trembling, but she did not lower her eyes. "Please don't punish anyone else," she said. "The other workers didn't know. I'll leave immediately." The child shifted again, resting his cheek directly over Dario's heart. Dario should have some insecurity. Instead, he heard the faint voice of another little boy from 28 years ago. "Please don't make me go back in there." He crushed the memory before it could take shape. "Take him," he ordered. Amara carefully lifted her son. The boy woke halfway and stared at Dario with enormous brown eyes. For several seconds, no one spoke. Then the child touched the silver scar near Dario's collar. "Does it hurt?" Dario's men had watched him stitch his own wounds without flinching. Rivals had begged for mercy at his feet and received only silence. Yet the simple question caught him unprepared. "Not anymore." The toddler considered the answer, then held out his toy car. "You can have Bruno." Amara gently lowered his hand. "Kofi, no." "He's sad," the boy insisted. "I'm not sad," Dario said. Kofi leaned toward him and whispered loudly. "Mama says angry people are sometimes sad underneath." Amara closed her eyes. Dario stared at her. She appeared ready to vanish through the marble floor. For one dangerous moment, the room remained silent. Then Dario did something that shocked her more than if he had drawn the gun beneath the cushion. He took the toy car. Kofi smiled. "Thank you," Dario said stiffly. "You have to push him. Bruno doesn't like flying." "I'll remember that." Amara carried her son toward the door, but Dario's voice stopped her. "Report to my office at 7 tomorrow morning." Her shoulders fell. She thought she had lost her job. Dario let her believe it. What neither of them knew was that someone had photographed the child asleep on his chest through the library window, and before sunrise, that image would reach a man who had spent 3 years searching for Kofi. Amara arrived at Dario's office at exactly 7. She had barely slept. Every time she closed her eyes, she imagined herself jobless, homeless, and unable to pay for Kofi's medication. Dario stood beside the window overlooking the harbor. The dark suit he wore looked tailored around armor rather than a human body. On his desk sat Bruno, the wooden car. He had kept it. That frightened her more than if he had thrown it away. Sit, he said. She remained standing. I would rather hear it on my feet. His eyebrow lifted. Hear what? That I'm dismissed. Do you often decide what other people intend to say? Only when the evidence is obvious. You smuggled a child into a secured estate. I didn't smuggle him. He was left at the gate, and you concealed his presence. If I had told the housekeeper, she would have sent me home. That would have been appropriate. Not if missing one shift meant losing the money for his medicine. Dario turned from the window. What medicine? Amara's jaw tightened. That is private. You brought the matter into my home. My mistake involved his location, not his medical history. It had been years since anyone dependent upon Dario for a salary had spoken to him that way. He should have been offended. Instead, he found himself curious. What does your son have? Severe asthma. Where is his father? The change in her expression was immediate. Nowhere that matters. Dario walked behind his desk. You are not dismissed. Amara blinked. He pushed a document toward her. You are being reassigned. She looked down. To the private residence? My housekeeper tells me you have experience managing a household. I used to supervise guest services at a hotel. Then why are you cleaning rooms? Because hotels check references. And yours are poor? Destroyed. By whom? That is also private. Dario leaned back. You have an unusual understanding of employment. And you have an unusual interest in a maid's past. His mouth almost moved toward a smile, but he stopped it. The private residence offers shorter hours and triple your present salary. You may bring Kofi when childcare fails, provided he remains in the family wing. Amara looked at him as though she suspected a trap. Why? Because a child wandering through my security perimeter is unacceptable. You could solve that by firing me. I could, but you won't. No. Why? Dario glanced at the wooden car. Because Bruno dislikes flying. For the first time, Amara saw something beneath the reputation, beneath the expensive suit and the cold authority. It disappeared almost immediately. She signed the document. Over the next several weeks, Dario discovered that allowing one child into his private residence was similar to opening a window during a storm. Kofi filled every silent space. He placed plastic animals along the polished staircase. He asked guards why they never smiled. He decided Dario's enormous dining table was perfect for racing toy cars and announced that the man's chef made terrible porridge. No one had ever insulted Chef Leandro's cooking and lived without an argument. Kofi received a bowl of improved porridge the next morning. Amara tried constantly to keep him invisible. Dario made that impossible. He began returning from meetings before Kofi's bedtime. He ordered a doctor to examine the child's breathing. When he discovered Amara taking 2 buses across the city to reach the estate, a driver was assigned to her. She refused. Dario responded by assigning the car to Kofi. You cannot reject transportation that does not belong to you, he told her. That is manipulation. It is logistics. It is arrogant. It is effective. Their arguments became part of the rhythm of the house. But Amara watched him. She saw the way his hands became still whenever Kofi climbed into his lap. She noticed that he never entered the nursery Dario had ordered renovated beside her room. He always stopped at the doorway. One evening, she found him there after Kofi had fallen asleep. Dario stood in the dark corridor, looking at the small bed but refusing to cross the threshold. You could go inside, she said. I know. You look as if you're waiting for permission. His gaze hardened. Be careful. Amara should have apologized. Instead, she asked, who was he? Dario went completely still. Who was who? The child who made you afraid of that room. I'm not afraid. No, you're terrified. He stepped closer, and the corridor seemed to shrink around him. People who investigate my past rarely enjoy what they discover. I'm not investigating. I'm noticing. That can be equally dangerous. Amara met his eyes. Then tell me to stop. He did not. From inside the room, Kofi coughed. Amara rushed to him. Dario followed, remaining near the wall as she checked the boy's breathing. Kofi's eyes opened. Story, he mumbled. It's late, Amara whispered. Mr. Dario can tell it. Dario looked almost alarmed. I don't know any stories. You know scary ones. That is probably true, Amara said. Kofi patted the mattress. Dario stayed where he was. Amara saw the struggle behind his eyes, though she did not understand it. Finally, he walked into the room and sat on the edge of the bed. He told Kofi about a falcon that lived above the sea and frightened every bird in the sky. The falcon believed being feared made him strong. Then one winter, he found a sparrow with an injured wing. He carried it to his nest, but insisted he was only protecting his territory. What happened? Kofi asked sleepily. The sparrow healed. Did it leave? Dario paused. Yes. Was the falcon sad? He was still strong. That's not what I asked. Dario looked toward Amara. Yes, he said quietly. He was sad. Kofi took his hand. Maybe it came back. The boy fell asleep before Dario answered. When they stepped into the corridor, Amara said, that wasn't a children's story. No. Who left? Dario's expression closed again. Good night, Amara. She watched him walk away. The next morning, an envelope appeared on the seat of the car, assigned to Kofi. Inside was the photograph of him asleep on Dario's chest. Across the image, someone had written 6 words in red ink. You cannot protect what belongs to me. Amara's knees nearly collapsed. She seized Kofi, pulled him back inside, and locked the door. Her hands shook so badly that she dropped her phone twice before calling the one number she had promised herself she would never use for personal help. Dario answered immediately. What happened? She could not speak. Amara. He found us. Dario arrived in less than 4 minutes, followed by 2 armed guards. He entered the sitting room and found Amara crouched beside the sofa, clutching Kofi against her chest. Kofi began crying when the guards appeared. Dario dismissed them with one gesture. Then he knelt before the child. Do you remember Bruno? Kofi nodded. He is waiting in my office. Could you ask Mr. Enzo to help you find him? Dario's security chief understood. He offered Kofi his hand and led him away. The instant the door closed, Dario took the photograph from Amara. His entire face changed. It was not anger she saw. It was calculation. Who sent this? His father. You said Kofi's father was nowhere that mattered. I lied. That was unwise. I was trying to stay alive. Dario's gaze lifted. Name. Amara hugged herself. Lucien Vero. For the first time since she had entered his employment, she saw Dario genuinely shocked. He turned toward the window. You know him, she said. Yes. Ow. Lucien moves money for the Soranzo organization. The men trying to take control of the Eastern Port? His eyes narrowed. How do you know about that? I worked at the Marisol Grand Hotel. Powerful men became careless when they thought the woman arranging their rooms was invisible. Is that why your references were destroyed? Amar nodded. 3 years earlier, Lucien had booked the hotel's private conference floor under a false name. Amara had discovered documents left inside a meeting room. Payment lists, police contacts, customs officials, and shipping schedules connected to weapons trafficking. She had copied part of the records before Lucien caught her. At first, he charmed her. Then he threatened her. When she learned she was pregnant, he decided a child would give him permanent control over her. Amara fled. Lucien retaliated by accusing her of stealing from the hotel. He produced false footage and bribed a manager. No formal charge was filed because a public trial would have exposed too much, but every respected hotel in Bellariva received a warning never to employ her. I thought he stopped looking, she said. I changed apartments 4 times. I used my mother's surname. I never posted Kofi's photograph anywhere. Dario examined the picture. He didn't find you by accident. Someone inside this estate took this. The implication turned the room cold. Amara whispered, one of your people? One of my people has been selling information. Then Kofi isn't safe here. He is safer here than anywhere else. You don't know that. I know exactly what Lucien is capable of. So do I. She reached for the photograph, but Dario held it away. Pack only what you need. You and Kofi are moving to the Cliff House. No, that was not a request. I won't become a prisoner again. This is protection. Protection without choice is simply a prettier cage. Dario's voice hardened. Lucien will use you to reach me. This is not about you. It became about me the moment that picture was taken in my home. Amara stepped closer. Listen carefully. Lucian controlled where I worked, whom I spoke to, what I wore, and when I was allowed to leave. I will not hand that power to another dangerous man, simply because his intentions are better. Something flickered in Dario's expression. She expected rage. Instead, he placed a photograph on the table. What would make you feel protected rather than imprisoned? The question stunned her. My own phone. My own keys. I decide where Kofi sleeps. No guard enters my room without permission. And you tell me what is happening instead of making decisions around me. Anything else? Yes. Don't lie to me. Dario held her gaze for a long moment. Agreed. That evening, they moved to a fortified house above the northern cliffs. Kofi thought it was an adventure. Amara knew better. Dario increased security while secretly investigating his own staff. He trusted only Enzo Carbone, the quiet security chief who had been beside him since they were teenagers. 3 days later, Enzo brought him a list of everyone who had accessed the West Garden on the afternoon the photograph was taken. There were 11 names. One belonged to Celeste Vescari, Dario's aunt. Celeste had raised him after his father's death. She sat on the family council and controlled much of the organization's political network. She was also the person who had taught him that affection created weaknesses enemies could exploit. Dario refused to believe she had betrayed him. Then Enzo showed him the bank transfer. Celeste's assistant had received 200,000 euros from a company linked to Lucian. Question the assistant, Dario ordered. He disappeared this morning. Find him. Enzo hesitated. There's something else. Lucian has requested a meeting. Where? At the old opera house. He says he wants the woman and the child in exchange for proof that Soranzo's people have infiltrated your port authority. Dario's eyes became cold. He believes I trade human lives for business. He believes everyone does. Dario looked through the glass doors at Kofi chasing bubbles across the terrace while Amara laughed. Then he has misunderstood me. The next weeks changed the shape of their lives. Dario taught Amara how to recognize surveillance vehicles. She used her knowledge of hotel systems to trace Lucian's old reservations and identify meetings between Soranzo representatives and corrupt officials. She was not a helpless woman hiding behind Dario's walls. She became essential to uncovering the network surrounding them. One night, they sat across from each other in the Cliff House office, studying transaction records. You missed one, Amara said. Dario looked offended. I don't miss things. This number appears in 3 different forms. Here it's a room charge. Here it's a shipment weight. Here it's listed as a time. A code. For the Opera House. Box 12, seat 18. Dario studied her. You did this at the hotel. I noticed patterns. You could have run the place. I nearly did. Then you will again. She smiled faintly. Is that another order? A prediction. The power failed. Every light in the house went dark. Dario was on his feet before Amara could breathe. Stay here. You promised not to shut me out. I promised information, not permission to walk in a gunfire. A security alarm sounded below them. Then Kofi screamed. Amara ran. Dario caught her arm, but she twisted free and raced toward the child's room. A masked man was climbing through the broken window when she reached the corridor. She did not wait for rescue. She grabbed a heavy bronze lamp and struck his arm as he reached for Kofi. He turned on her, but Dario hit him from behind and drove him into the wall. Enzo arrived seconds later with guards. The intruder was restrained. Kofi clung to Amara, sobbing. Dario examined the broken window, then turned to Enzo. How did he cross the perimeter? Enzo's face was grim. Someone disabled the Western sensors. Only 3 people have that authority. I know. Dario's gaze settled on him. For a terrible second, silence filled the corridor. Then the intruder laughed through bloodied teeth. You keep looking at the wrong traitor. He bit down sharply. Enzo lunged toward him, but it was too late. The man had concealed poison inside a false tooth. He died before they could question him. If you're holding your breath with Amara as danger closes around her child, subscribe now, because the person who opened that window was closer to Dario than either of them imagined. The next morning, Celeste arrived unannounced. She embraced Dario as though nothing had happened and brought Kofi an expensive wooden train. Amara refused to let him touch it until a guard inspected every piece. Celeste watched with thinly disguised contempt. "You have unsettled this family," she told Amara over lunch. "Kofi and I did not invite the man who entered last night. You invited danger long before you came here." Dario placed his glass on the table. "That is enough." Celeste looked at him. "I protected you when you were a boy, and I am protecting them now. The child is not yours." Kofi looked up from his meal. Dario's voice became deadly quiet. Not another word in front of him. Celeste waited until Amara took Kofi outside. Then she turned on her nephew. "You are repeating your father's mistake. My father trusted the wrong men. Your father allowed sentiment to weaken him. My father died because someone leaked his route to the Soranzo family. And your brother died because he was in the car." Dario's face drained of emotion. Celeste stepped closer. "Have you forgotten Mateo's body? Have you forgotten what loving that boy cost you?" "No." "Then send Amara away before her child becomes another grave you visit in secret." Dario stared at her. Only 3 people knew he visited Mateo's grave. Celeste realized her mistake a second too late. Dario asked, "How do you know where I go?" "I assumed." "No, you knew." She tried to leave, but guards blocked the doorway. Dario's voice broke in a way Amara had never heard. "Were you watching me then too?" Celeste's silence answered him. The truth emerged slowly. Dario's father had planned to leave the criminal world. He intended to give evidence against the Soranzo organization and convert the family's remaining businesses into a legitimate shipping empire. Celeste believed his decision would destroy them. She leaked his travel route, expecting Soranzo's men to frighten him into submission. They attacked the car instead. Dario survived. His 12-year-old brother did not. "I never wanted Mateo dead," Celeste said. "Everything I did afterward was to make you strong enough to survive what I caused." "You turned my grief into a throne," Dario replied. "I built you an empire. You built it over my brother's blood." Amara stood in the doorway, holding Kofi's hand. Celeste saw them and laughed bitterly. "You think she loves you? She needs your walls, your money, your name. The moment the danger ends, she will leave." Dario looked at Amara. Celeste saw doubt enter his eyes and used it. "Lucien sent me the photograph," she continued. "I allowed him information because I needed you to understand. The boy is a vulnerability. The woman is a weapon pointed at your heart." Amara's face changed. "You gave Lucien access to my child?" "I gave him nothing he did not already seek." Dario ordered Celeste confined while he determined the extent of her betrayal. But the damage remained. That night, Amara found him alone on the terrace with Bruno in his hand. "Mateo's?" she asked. He nodded. "My brother had a car like this. He carried it everywhere. The sparrow in your story." Dario looked toward the Black Sea. "I was 16 when he died. He fell asleep against me during the journey. When the shooting began, I covered him. I thought I had saved him." Amara sat beside him. "When I woke in the hospital, no one would tell me where he was. Celeste stood beside my bed and said my weakness had killed him. You were a child. I was responsible for protecting him." "No, the people who attacked that car were responsible. Celeste was responsible. You were a wounded boy holding his little brother." His voice turned rough. "When I woke and found Kofi on my chest, for a moment I thought, that you were back in the car?" "Yes." Amara rested her hand beside his, not touching him until he chose to close the distance. Their fingers met. "I don't know how to do this," he admitted. "Do what?" "Care about someone without preparing to bury them." Her eyes filled with tears. "You begin by letting them live." He turned toward her. For months, attraction had grown between them in quiet moments. In their arguments, in the details he remembered, in the way she challenged his commands, and he learned to ask rather than demand. But this was different. There were no walls left between them. Dario touched her cheek, giving her time to pull away. She did not. Their kiss was gentle, almost uncertain, and far more dangerous to him than any enemy's weapon. The next morning, Amara was gone. So was Kofi. On Dario's desk, she had left Bruno and a handwritten note. "Lucien contacted me. He says he will release the evidence, clearing my name, and disappear if I meet him alone. If I stay, he will keep coming for Kofi and everyone around us. You taught me not to wait helplessly behind walls." Forgive me for using the lesson against you. Dario read it once. Then he swept everything from his desk. Enzo entered as a glass shattered against the wall. She left willingly, he said. She left because she believes sacrificing herself will protect us. Where would Lucien take her? The opera house. Dario reached for his coat. Enzo blocked the door. It could be a trap. It is. You cannot walk into it. Dario's eyes held something more frightening than rage. I will not wake up beside another dying child. Amara entered the abandoned opera house holding Kofi's hand. Lucien stood beneath the ruined chandelier, perfectly dressed, as if he were waiting for a business meeting rather than the woman he had terrorized for 3 years. You look well, he said. You look exactly the same. That sounds like a compliment. It isn't. Kofi hid behind her. Lucien glanced at him with no tenderness. My son. No. A child is not property. You always were dramatic. And you always mistook cruelty for intelligence. His smile vanished. Amara had arrived with a plan. She wore a recording device beneath her collar and had sent copies of Lucien's coded hotel records to a journalist and an honest magistrate. But Lucien knew. He ripped the device from her dress. Did you really think the maid could outsmart everyone? I was never just a maid. No. You were a hotel worker who stole information she did not understand. Understood enough to frighten you. He seized her wrist. Kofi screamed and struck Lucien's leg with Bruno. Amara stared at the wooden car. She had left it in Dario's office. Inside its hollow base, a tiny red light blinked. A tracking device. Dario had anticipated that Lucien might reach them again. Amara almost laughed. Lucien raised his hand toward Kofi. She stepped between them. The opera house doors burst open. Dario entered alone. Lucien dragged Amara against him and pressed a gun beneath her jaw. You came without guards? No, Dario said. I came without visible guards. Red targeting lights appeared across Lucien's chest from the darkened balconies. Release them. Lucien's arm tightened. Call them off. No. You would risk her life? Dario looked directly at Amara. No. I trust her with it. She understood. Amara drove her heel into Lucien's foot and dropped with Kofi as Dario lunged forward. The gun discharged into the ceiling. They struck the floor together. Lucien reached for the weapon, but Amara kicked it toward the orchestra pit. Dario pinned him down. Lucien laughed breathlessly. Kill me. Prove what you are. Dario's fist drew back. Then Kofi cried his name. Dario stopped. For years, everyone had believed the most terrifying thing Dario Vescari could do was end a man's life. That afternoon, he did something his enemies considered unthinkable. He spared one. Get him on my sight, he told Enzo. Lucien stared at him in disbelief. Dario rose and crossed to Amara and Kofi. I could kill you, he told Lucien without looking back. But death would hide the names you paid, the families you destroyed, and the officials who served you. You will testify. You will watch your organization collapse. And then you will spend the rest of your life knowing the woman you called powerless defeated you. Police units entered through the side doors, led by the magistrate who had received Amara's files. Dario had spent the morning making an agreement that cost him much of his own empire. In exchange for immunity for low-level employees and protection for Amara, he surrendered records exposing the Soranzo network and the illegal branches of his family organization. He gave up the power built from his brother's death. Lucien and Celeste both faced trial. The evidence cleared Amara's name publicly. The Marisol Grand offered her a senior position as compensation for the conspiracy that had destroyed her career. She declined. Instead, she used the settlement to open a small consultancy that trained hotels to identify trafficking, coercion, and financial crimes hidden behind luxury operations. Dario converted the remaining Vescari businesses into a legitimate maritime security company. It made less money than his old empire. He slept better. But one question remained between them. Months after the opera house confrontation, Amara found him standing at the nursery doorway again. Kofi was asleep inside, clutching Bruno. You still stop here, she said. Some habits take longer to unlearn. She stood beside him. The hotel in Aramani offered me a contract. Dario's face became unreadable. For how long? 1 year. He nodded once. It is a good opportunity. You're not going to tell me to stay? I want you to stay. But I will not become another man who confuses love with ownership. She studied him for several seconds. I turned it down. His composure finally cracked. Why? Because I received a better offer. From whom? Myself. I'm opening a second office here in Bellariva. Dario exhaled. Amara smiled. Did you believe, Celeste? I believed you might choose a life without me. I can choose any life I want. Yes. She took his hand. And I choose one with you. He kissed her forehead. I love you. It was the first time he had said it. Amara did not answer immediately. She made him wait just long enough for panic to reach his eyes. Then she smiled. I love you too. A year later, the West Library no longer looked like the private sanctuary of a feared mafia boss. Toy cars occupied the bottom shelf. Finger paintings hung beside priceless artwork. A small table stood near the window where Kofi built towers while Dario reviewed shipping contracts. On the anniversary of the day they met, Dario fell asleep on the same leather sofa. Kofi, now 4, climbed onto his chest with the solemn confidence of someone reclaiming his favorite place. Amara found them there. Dario opened one eye. He is heavier. You're less frightening. I am still frightening. Kofi lifted his head. Not to me. Dario looked at the boy. The old fear rose. The memory of shattered glass, gunfire, and Matteo growing still in his arms. But this time, he did not push love away to escape the possibility of loss. He wrapped one arm around Kofi and held out the other to Amara. She joined them on the sofa. The feared man who had once believed tenderness was a weakness had dismantled part of his empire, exposed his own family, spared an enemy, and surrendered control over the woman he loved. But the most unthinkable thing he did was much simpler. He allowed himself to become Kofi's father. Not through blood, not through ownership, through every bedtime story, every difficult conversation, every asthma attack endured beside a hospital bed, and every morning he chose to remain. If Dario, Amara, and Kofi's journey touched you, subscribe for more emotional stories like this one. And tell us in the comments, which moment stayed with you most? Kofi sleeping on Dario's chest, Amara standing up to Lucian, Dario sparing his enemy, or the moment he finally allowed himself to become a father?